Okay. Perhaps we get started. Let's see. Oh, right on time. Is it working? Yes. Oh, okay. So, are there people outside? No. Okay. So we can start it for the last panel for today. Facilitating cross-campus collaboration for trainees, and we have a wonderful panel here, ready to discuss some of the challenges and opportunities to, having to learn from multiple campuses. So maybe we can start by introducing yourself, describing your projects, and how you are involved. Yes.
Hi, I'm Iti. I'm a first-year PhD student in the biomedical engineering program at Cornell Ithaca. I can only speak to the first couple months of my program, but I essentially rotated here during the summer, and I'm continuing to rotate in Cornell Ithaca.
Hi, I'm Akanksha, and I'm a fourth year in the Tri-ICBM program at Weill Cornell. I did a part of my program actually in Ithaca, and then I'm here in the Elemento lab, and so I'm mostly at the Cornell campus, but I've had the opportunity to collaborate with people in Ithaca, and I also rotated with Ewan when I was there. So yeah, I've had a lot of interaction and opportunities to work between the campuses with different faculties.
Hi, I'm Jamal. I'm a fifth year in the Computational Biology and Medicine program. I actually spent my first full year in Ithaca and then came here and joined Olivier's lab and have continued to stay here. And we can talk more about what our program actually allows, because through the years, people have been spending different amounts of time in Ithaca, actually. So that has made a variant on the amount of time students will spend there.
Hi, my name's Andrew. I'm a third-year student in the Tri-I Computational Biology program. I'm co-advised between the two campuses with Olivier Elemento and Andy Clark. And so I jointly have been spending my time between the campuses throughout the year. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Muna. I'm a fourth-year medical student here at Cornell. So unlike them, I am not part of a sort of structured program that allows you to do research, though there do exist programs. Part of the medical school curriculum is the area of concentration, which is a dedicated 4-month research block. I decided to start an area of concentration with another student in computational biology and precision medicine, and spent those 4 months, which I added on another year of, in the lab of Olivier Elemento. Thanks.
Okay, so maybe we can start from the very beginning. So how did you meet your PI, or went around and selected your activity, research interest in this cross-campus situation? I don't know who wants to start. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I started, my first rotation was with Andy Clark. I was up in Ithaca as part of the Tri-I program, so I rotated in the Clark lab in Ithaca. And it was actually through symposiums that were just like this, these Ithaca and New York City symposiums, that I met Dr. Elemento a couple times. There was an RNA symposium and immunology symposium, and it was through conversations that I decided to eventually do a rotation and eventually pursue co-mentorship between the two campuses.
Sure. So even before I started grad school, actually, I was working at Weill Cornell as an analyst, and that's kind of how I got started into computational biology. And then I eventually decided to go and start the PhD program, and that's how I was able to first go to Ithaca for my first semester, and I took classes there, and then I rotated and with Ewan, and we worked on a really cool project in terms of like single cell analyses, and also this other project, which is actually in collaboration with the kidney transplant doctors here at Weill Cornell. And that was really interesting because I started working on the project there, and then eventually sort of came back to New York, and I was working with Olivier, and then we basically continued working on the project as a collaboration. So yeah, so I guess that, and then also, even through, of course, like Olivier's connections and everybody who collaborates with Olivier, I've had the opportunity to like work with Claudia Fishback as well in the Ithaca campus. That was one of my first projects that I worked on as well. So, yeah.
Anyone else with a different path?
I guess
Every road's like.
So the question was, what is our origin story in the Institute for Precision Medicine, et cetera? So I started out also like Akanksha doing research work here at Cornell. Prior to starting medical school, I was doing some virology work and then also doing some health informatics type research, which was my first sort of introduction into computational research. After starting medical school, I realized I was very interested in cancer research, cancer genomics, and sort of through that interest, after taking care of a few patients, decided that that was a direction I wanted to move in. And Olivier Elemento's name came up as somebody who did cancer genomics research. So I sent off an email and he pitched me a couple of projects and I said, okay, I'll start. Please be patient with how long it's going to take me to get up to speed with certain things. And thankfully he was. And I've very much so had the opportunity to really grow as a almost amateur bioinformatician with a strong understanding of how that really can work in terms of its clinical application since. Had some opportunity to actually like visit across other campuses as of other students involved in the Eipm, just to touch on that aspect. Another student who did this AOC in computational biology, precision medicine, has actually done some work at Cornell Tech. One of my formative experiences early on in the lab was at this immunology symposium that actually, I guess you had previously said was what introduced you to Olivier's work down here. So it seems like there's been really formative influences for all of us here through cross-collaboration, through these symposiums that are interinstitutional.
I also wanted to highlight something specific to the biomedical engineering program. So for our program, every PhD student for their first summer has to have a clinical immersion, which means they pretty much shadow a doctor and have a mini project over the summer. And for some people, that's very related to their thesis, and that I think I haven't done it yet, but from people I've talked to, it has really fostered collaboration.
Okay, so it seems to me that kind of common across all of you is basically a lot of networking and seminars, symposiums. So that's probably we should do the third one maybe in 6 months instead of a year. But once you started, let's say, how was your, maybe the first challenges that you might encounter and in your first activity that you did?
Are you talking in terms of like inter-campus or just like our personal challenges?
In general, I think. And of course, if you have something specific because of the inter-campus.
I mean, I think initially when you start a project, it's like you're given an idea, but of course I think you have to do a lot of the groundwork yourself to get started in it. And I guess initially I never realized how much resource and support was actually available if you asked. Because if you don't ask, the answer is always no, kind of, I guess, the idea. So I think, of course, like now IPMs come about and everybody has these work group meetings, and I think, and also like journal clubs and some organized meetings have helped me kind of realize like what everybody's working on, and just knowing the right people to go to for help when you need it for data or the analyses, or even sort of interpreting your analyses by like expert groups. So yes, I think the initial challenge was like asking the right people the right things whenever required, I guess, was something that I learned. And I guess also in terms of sort of the inter-campus, so I've had the opportunity to collaborate as well. And usually there's no limitation. Usually I think when I know that someone's doing this and someone's really good at some field that I would like to get expertise on, it's been actually like pretty welcoming for anybody to like be happy to give you suggestions and their feedback on what you're doing. And there is no rule book as such that like this is how things have to go. Usually just knowing the person and approaching them has been pretty easy. I think we're a bit apprehensive about doing that initially, but the fact that all doors are always usually open if we actually kind of make the effort has always been something that I keep in mind now.
Yeah, so is this on? Okay, so I would just like to talk about the cross-campus experience. One of the significant challenges is that really you only have housing in one place at one time, and I'm constantly in both places. I go up probably once every 1 to 2 months to the other location that I'm not at to meet with Dr. Alimento or Dr. Clark. And I guess I'm fortunate that usually I stay with some friends or someone I know that allows that to happen. But in terms of like living in one place, in New York City, there's student housing. So it's really easy from the New York City perspective just to live in New York and you have this permanent place and it's very easy. But going up to Ithaca, you have to find your own housing. You're kind of on your own. And there's not really institutional support at all from the Ithaca side. So I know in the Tri-I computational biology program, students had the choice to go to New York City or go to Ithaca. And there's a large part of our program which is international students who are coming from non-America, and like New York City is very well known, but they don't know anything about Ithaca, and they would have to find their own housing, and there's no institutional support to help them do that. So what happens is they don't go to Ithaca; they just go to New York City, and that's just a significant issue if you want to have any cross-campus collaboration. What I think just the easiest solution, which might not be the most feasible, is just to have some sort of Ithaca housing, such that they wouldn't have to think about it and have to worry about it. Well, which obviously might be complicated, but it obviously exists with just a large number of undergraduate students that live in student housing. So just in terms of just a cross-campus collaboration, what I do is I have a permanent place in New York. It's very easy to sublet it out to, say someone's coming for a summer internship, and I could go up to Ithaca and sublet in Ithaca from an undergrad who's not there for the summer because they're not there for the summer semester. So it's been another complication, I guess, to essentially be in both places at once. And it requires extra, I guess, attention, just paying attention to where to live. And so I just think it would be easier if there's just some support from the institutions to have this sort of collaboration.
Anyone else?
I wanted to add to that on the other side. So my program's in Ithaca, and I was here in the city. And the city, how the student housing you're talking about wasn't open to Ithaca students, and only open to students who have programs in the city. So I think it's on both sides where it kind of goes back to another point I want to make, and that's like emails. Like the entire completely different like email like system here and there. So just because I didn't have the Weill Cornell email and username, I couldn't access the housing, and I couldn't access the internet for half of my rotation. That administrative stuff is a pretty big roadblock.
Okay, 2 action items. So the symposiums and definitely housing and better connection on the IT side. I'm well aware of what you're talking about. Yeah. So can you comment on the, let's say, day-to-day activity that you do and the challenges you might have or the opportunities that you have by doing here, Ithaca or Cornell Tech or anywhere?
I don't know, you guys will probably agree with me, but I think it's very interesting to see. I feel like in the kind of like the Weill Cornell, the New York City community, it was a lot easier to get in contact with people. I felt that being able to go up to a professor's office and knock on their door if they weren't answering their emails was a lot more feasible than in Ithaca, but that could also just be my personal experience. But I also felt like because there was, and this is an unfortunate thing that I felt, but I also felt that because there were just significantly more professors here in a broader sense of disciplines, there were just easier people to contact here. Absolutely nothing against Ithaca. While I spent my time in Ithaca and was doing my rotation with Philip Messer, it was very easy, but I felt like that things just happened quicker here, and it could be the New York City vibe, or it could be just the vast amount of people here.
I mean, I partly agree, partly disagree.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Because the fact that we are ignorant about Ithaca is the issue, I think. Because I mean, for instance, I think our program does a decent job about like profiling all of the faculty and what they're doing, but I think there are so many changes all the time that I feel like we're not always aware of what's happening in Ithaca sometimes in terms of the work. Unless like you're directly connected to somebody and you kind of like keep up with them, it's very hard to figure out like what is everybody working on, and if there's like new faculty. For instance, I guess in my example, when I actually went to rotate, I didn't actually know even was there at all. I think you just started that year, I believe, and then like when I interviewed, I had no idea. And then when I got there, then I took the class with Ewan, and then I realized like, you know, he was doing such cool stuff in his lab, so then I decided to rotate. But before that, I had no idea, and then there's Charles Danko as well, who was equally computational. There's like John List. There's so many people that, I mean, I wasn't like fully aware of until I actually went there. So maybe like I don't know, an event,
themselves.
but I guess what do you mean?
Like the programs themselves need to be better connecting the students with the professors?
Yeah, or I mean, some sort of like an independent sort of working group where, you know, collectively, I know there's a single cell working group, which I find really helpful occasionally when I have sort of tuned into it, but but otherwise, it's also really hard to sort of be in loop with all of these working groups in terms of just knowing like what's happening and how we can collaborate.
I will say one before we just keep going negative. The one positive thing is since I started in the program, it's very evident that efforts have been made to do symposiums like this, and that students are making, and professors are even making more of an effort to connect with students between the two campuses. So, Andrew started 2 years after me. The whole like cross-campus connection with a professor there was basically not feasible when I started. It was people would have just been like, "That's ridiculous. Why would you do that?" But like when Andrew came in, it was very like he was like, "I'm going to do this," and everyone was like, "You sure?" And he's like, "Yeah," and we're like, "Okay, cool." So like that was both like from the faculty and student side. So I want to say like there is a positive trend going on, maybe not as fast as we want it, but.
Also, there's nothing like holding back because, you know, technology and digitally we're also connected, that I've never really found an issue when I'm like working with anybody back in Ithaca. Otherwise, yeah, it's definitely not hard.
So one interesting reward of being at both campuses, I guess, is kind of knowing what's going on at both places. So I know in the last week I've talked to potential collaborators in New York City and in Ithaca just about questions related to my research or helping them out with analysis with their research, which can be just really useful. So like, for example, I'm currently analyzing MHC germline genetics, which is really complicated just due to complex patterns of selection and haplotype structure, and it has to do with obviously immunology. So a little bit of diverse perspectives that I've been talking with people at MSK here in New York City and up in Ithaca, where they're some experts in haplotypes. So it's helpful.
So I open up also for question from the audience if you have any, and I'll. Oh, sure.
So how is it to manage or handle two mentors, right, in the two different campuses? In terms of, I don't know, meetings or reporting, keeping up with both sides of
I think, well, there's always, I think, a good positive having two PIs working with. You get two different perspectives, two great ideas. I think also another helpful aspect is that Andy and Olivia are both very hands-off and kind of allow me to kind of explore my research and kind of really focus on my specific project, which is really helpful. I think being part of two lab cultures can be difficult at times because you miss things. You'll always have FOMO, but at the same time, you have twice as much opportunities. So I think it's you take the reward with the drawbacks.
And I can actually add one more thing in terms of like collaborating cross campus. In that sense, it's like we have Claudia Fishback in Ithaca, who does a lot of sort of ECM mechanistic studies in the biomedical engineering department, and then there is Dr. Dannenberg here at Weill, who's an expert in like sort of metabolomics of adipogenesis, and he has like a huge cohort that he collects from MSKCC in his collaboration, and then there's Olivier. So we have this really great like collaboration, I guess, in terms of like computational, sort of the more biomedical, and then the clinical as well. So it's really great to be in meetings with, I think, all of them, because you really get all aspects covered in that sense. But yeah, I guess that's not so much a balance, but but it's just an experience, I guess. Yeah.
I'm wondering to what extent you might have benefited from taking courses on the alternate campuses.
Okay, so sorry, I got really excited about this. So my first full year was spent in Ithaca, and the first semester I actually did a rotation and classes, but then the second semester I didn't do a rotation because I knew that I wanted to rotate in one of the labs here, or I wanted to eventually end up here, so I only just took about 4 or 5 classes in Ithaca. And I actually found that, but remember, the caveat is Cornell Tech had not been built yet, or the Cornell Tech was still on the Google campus, so there were maybe one class offering that could happen. And then Akanksha can actually add, because she was the following year. So you can see how it's grown between the Cornell Tech campus. But I thought the variety of classes offered at Cornell Ithaca were absolutely fantastic, and that I would not have gotten the computational skill set or even the statistics skill set I would have gotten had I only taken classes in New York City. So for subsequent students that have actually come into our program, I've been like, New York City is great, all these labs, but the classes in Ithaca are absolutely fantastic. So I just have positive things to say.
Yeah, so my background was more computer science before I started the grad school program. So I really went to Ithaca with the intention of taking more hardcore biology courses, which actually sort of form more so the undergrad sort of repertoire of classes that is required. So I want to take more like basic RNA biology courses and stuff and statistics, which I was able to. And I think the quality and sort of the offering in Ithaca is sort of unmatched at this campus, because here I think we're still a bit more clinically driven and med student focused, so it's very different. Even with the coming of Cornell Tech, I think the machine learning and so sort of more hardcore sort of artificial intelligence NLP classes have become sort of, they're like an asset for Cornell Tech, but at the same time, for someone like me who wanted to go back and take like some really basic biology courses, I think Ithaca was a great opportunity for me to do that.
Oh yeah, so I am taking classes right now, and it's really nice. Another side note of being on the main campus is you can get access to a lot of the industry connections that are available. So like, for example, I want to go into industry. So there's like a massive job fair that happens every semester. There's constantly companies coming on campus. So creating those networks with those companies is a lot easier for students. Granted, New York City also has a lot of networking, but it's just a different type. Yeah.
I'm in the same position as them, is that I took most of my courses in Ithaca, but that being said, the New York City class offerings are getting a lot better. So there's now a computational biology master's program. There's also, Cornell Tech is expanding dramatically, so they're offering a lot more classes. So maybe that gap's getting smaller now, but you know, there's still a clear gap in course offerings.
Can I follow up as well? So there are obviously voices not here in the room
Yes.
Actually, I have an experience where that exact experience was really hard to get here because there was specifically a machine learning class that a lot of people were trying to take that was actually being hosted in Ithaca. And I think getting the sort of the, I don't know, the logistics of the paperwork for that to be hosted here was really hard for some of the people in my program. And I think David Christini, who is our or was our program director, had to really sort of come in and get some things working to actually get them to even just telecast the class here at Cornell. I don't know if there's a rule book to do this, but I definitely think it could be a lot more simpler to be able to take classes. Otherwise, because I mean, Jason Measy actually, he teaches a class part here, part there, and I think it works seamlessly. So I think we could definitely do that for other classes, and for sure, like people in sort of our program would love to actually have the opportunity to do that.
Yeah, I'd love to see every class Zoomed where there's interest across campuses. I don't see any reason why that shouldn't be a thing, but I think it'd be just really helpful.
Hi, I'm Brian. I'm a senior currently studying at Cornell Ithaca. I have kind of an orthodox question, but I guess it's worth a shot. So just like a slight overview. So I was working in the late Dr. Christy Richards' lab. She had a dual appointment here at Weill and down at Cornell. And I was working with immunochemotherapy, which eventually led me to discover something that was precision medicine. And I guess that's kind of what led me here to Eipm. And like ideally, I would like to kind of continue on with this project over my gap year, so, because it's like reached that point, I guess, like where I just have to do RNA sequencing to find the biomarkers. But yeah, I don't think there's really a structured program for like a specific instance like that. But I'm wondering if there are any like opportunities for like someone like me to be able to carry on my work here.
I mean, so our program actually does has like a summer program which can be extended essentially, which comes under the Tri-ICBM, and I think it's open to seniors and juniors in college, but you want to take it as a gap year and not, okay, I see. I mean, I think there's always probably ways we could probably get that working, right?
Yes. Yes. We can definitely, find a way to how much time do we have? Couple lot. Okay, so one last perhaps question, or if you had to, provide some suggestions to maybe the students here, what would be your, recommendation that you?
I'll go last.
Okay.
All right, I could start. I think letting the research kind of guide the way. Like it doesn't make sense, I think, to force a cross-campus collaboration. Now being in it, but the rewards can be a lot just by bringing two minds together, which are working in two different institutions, who perhaps weren't even working with each other before. So there could be a lot of benefits, but let the research guide the way to what you are interested in.
I think if you are interested in working with, like, especially from the student perspective, students across campuses, letting the students know this and like leaving things open, like having Zoom meetings open for your lab meetings consistently, or like even for this particular symposium, there's supposed to be a Zoom meeting going on right now that anyone can tune into. And we're very lucky that technology has enabled us to do this pretty seamlessly, but continuing to like advocate for this would be really helpful. Also in terms of classes, as we have discussed before.
I guess I would say, just to add to all of that, like networking and just talking to everybody in terms of what they're doing. Because when you know what someone's doing, even briefly, you'll always know the right person to approach and kind of connect with to guide you and let research lead the way in that sense, coming back to that point. So yeah, just like keeping up with what's happening, who's working on what and things like that. Yeah.
I don't think I have anything to add, to be honest, since I'm just starting out.
Oh, yeah, of course. I think the rooms are always scheduled as required. So if we do have a set time and date for like meeting in advance, then the rooms can be scheduled accordingly, because I know it is really hard to get schedules like a week or before, like a week in advance or something. But if it's months in advance, it's a lot more sort of set in place. So there's definitely, yeah, we can schedule rooms.
Yeah, absolutely. But I was wondering, since it's at Zoom, anyone can connect from anywhere, unless you.
Yeah.
downside of that is it puts people in disparate bins, and just to like nucleate those sort of initiatives.
Yeah, I think everyone's like, when we're in like a discussion, for instance, becomes really hard when everybody's tuning in from different Zooms, I guess. So like kind of like how we do journal clubs is like when everybody's together, and then we have like collective questions from if anybody has to tune in from outside. But I think having everybody in the room is a better discussion setup anyway, I think.
So that's an interesting comment, because it seems that we're going towards, using technology to, put together people from different geographical locations, but still we want to kind of concentrate it. So there is this, but I understand we have a lot of conference calls with, everybody's in their office, and it doesn't feel the same as being at a meeting or, in a room. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't think that's always true. I mean,
Actually, we have someone in our program who did that, Milka.
Yeah, Milka. So there is.
Yeah.
So there is. So there's a program that offers. It's you have to like ask for it, but there's a program that allows students to spend a year up to 2 years with funding at the opposite campus, like a long period of time. So a girl in our program originally started at Weill and was based here, if you will, in Hurrell Weinstein's lab, and then she wanted to. I don't remember who she was collaborating with in Ithaca, but she apparently was the first person to ask to go to Ithaca for 2 years because they had the resources, the professor that she wanted to work with. And then before her, I think about 3 to 4 students had come essentially started in Ithaca and spent like a year or 2 here and went back.
But Milka was special in the sense that she actually generated all her experimental data in Ithaca specifically, and then came over to New York to do the computational analyses with Hurrell.
Because you're right, she knew that she needed the long period of time for experiments to work, experiments to fail, and things like that.
Are there no medical doctors working with you and doing a few months or a few years in computational biology and learning all these things?
Yeah, I mean, I do collaborate. Well, as in like as a collaboration. Yeah, I mean, I do collaborate with a lot of medical doctors, but. Yeah.
I'm not a doctor, but I guess.
At least not yet.
Dr. Judy.
I'd like to believe 3/4 counts for something. I mean, there are a number of at least younger people who are involved in the medical school, especially medical students, who are increasingly involved in the Eipm, either in the context of doing experimental work or in the context of doing computational work. I, along with another student in my year who's now an MD PhD, his name's Kevin Boehm, we started this area of concentration in precision medicine and computational biology. And since then, a number of other students younger than us have enrolled in that AOC and have either joined the Elemento lab, joined Chris Mason's lab. I think before, I guess he went to Germany. What was the guy's name? Who was the former, wasn't it like former head of Eipm? Whatever. Anyway, so other people have, huh? Yes, him. So other students in Mark Rubin's lab. So there are definitely a number of young students who are on the track to be MDs, who very much value the skill set and the insight afforded by understanding precision medicine research and its impact overall in the clinic. I consider myself one of those people. There are a number of MDs as well who obviously do as well. I know some fellows who work in some of the associated labs, like Dan Landau's lab, et cetera. I don't know if that counts necessarily as the IPM. Does that answer your question?
I wanted to add, like, there are students who don't just pick one location for wet lab, one location for dry lab. Like, Ben Cosner has a student who's here who's doing both dry and wet lab here. And also like the clinical immersion program that the part of program that we have where we shadow doctors and work with them. Like most of the time it is wet lab here and not necessarily just all dry lab.
Do you foresee more, like following up on Alicia's question, do you foresee more departments having these tri-eye or bi-eye programs for students to do like wet lab here and wet lab there?
I think it's like really research specific in that sense. From everyone that I've come across, they specifically were working on something so specialized that they really wanted to come and collaborate here. So I think if your question brings you here, I think that works. Not, again, like not forcing collaborations, but if your research sort of brings you to like do the whole tri or the bi, I guess, is something that I've seen for most parts.
Any more questions? So let's thank our fantastic panelists. We can take a quick break.
So I'd like to call Dr. Deborah Estring to come up. She will make some concluding remarks. Whatever. Or say whatever you want.
Good. I don't have any grand summary concluding remarks. There was a lot of wide dynamic range of information and people, and mostly just a thank you to everybody. Olivia had to step out, and so I'm the bookend at the end of the 2 days. I really enjoyed meeting. I hope that we get to have a chance for more detailed conversations among us, and the next time we do this, we'll have more Cornell Tech students up here as well and more collaborations.
Thank you very much. I want to thank Olivier, and I want to thank Ankur Sain and Tanzim Chowdhury, and absolutely all of you. For me, this has been an absolutely wonderful experience, and we want to give a big hand to Marie Normal, who's standing there in the corner, who actually did all of the work in inviting everybody, has been working on this meeting for months, I would say, and she really did a great job, and she's been helped by Caitlin Raymond, but she really did most of the work. The two of them really worked very hard on this meeting. For me, it was, I've been working here just for 1 year, and it was an eye-opener to hear wonderful lectures from Cornell Ithaca, from Cornell Tech, from Qatar, to know that we have these 4 campuses. I didn't even realize the scope and the breadth of what was going on in all these campuses. And so-called clinical director, I didn't even know what was going on. So I learned a lot in these last 2 days, and I hope that this has been very productive for all of you, and I hope we will have more meetings like this. And I think the more we have more campus collaboration, the more we can learn from each other and work together in many different ways. And thanks to all of you very much.